This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque, continuing 16 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm so glad you're here as we talk about how to nail it every time, no matter what kind of real estate you want to do. Just you, me, and the best real estate guests in the country. Today, the summer market. But not just any summer market, because there's big news about a market shift, making it easier for home buyers. That's right, a better shot at getting the home you want. It's not happening everywhere, but it is happening. So, let's go straight to Dallas, Texas, where home buyers are finding plenty of houses on the market, and less competition, too. Joining us now is Leslie Rouda Smith, the 2022 president of the National Association of Realtors. Leslie is a broker associate at Dave Perry Miller Real Estate in Dallas. She previously served as the chair at the Texas Realtors, where she also received a couple of big honors, their Distinguished Service Award and Realtor of the Year. Leslie, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Stephen.
I am so glad you are here. And so, Leslie, first of all, how's business in Dallas?
Well, it's hot here because it is summer, but the inventory is surging. And I will say, though, in May of this year, we saw it's between a 13 to 53% jump in available homes. But that's because when you look at all of Dallas-Fort Worth, there are so many different communities, suburbs, and things. I mean, it is one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country. So you can imagine that what might be over here might not be the same over there. That's why the range is so high. But prices are cooling some in Dallas County, and the median sale price dropped about 5.5% year over year. But we have a balanced market that's emerging, and around 66% of our homes are selling below list price, which is very interesting. Days of market have gone up a little bit, and definitely a shift from the previous frenzy that we all know about a few years ago. But luxury is still showing some resilience, which is awesome because that's an important segment of our profession as well. So Dallas is doing great. The market is still doing well. We're happy. We have weeks that are busier than others, but nothing to complain about.
Excellent. And Leslie, let me ask you about that, because I must say you're the first real estate professional I've talked to who says that inventory is rising substantially. So tell me, that really changes the dynamic. For one thing, as you said, prices are not continuing to go up, up, up. And for another thing, both the seller and the buyer have some say in negotiations. Tell us about that.
Well, certainly increased inventory means that we have more choices and fewer bidding wars. It's outside of the high demand micro markets that I was just mentioning. But no, there's obviously when there's more inventory, you don't get into these crazy bidding wars where people are overpaying for a home and then having remorse 2 years later, and then they can't sell it for what they bought it for in the frenzy of the market. So it's a good thing. But, multiple offers are still happening, particularly on move-in ready homes in coveted areas. And we all have those all over the United States, but it's less intense overall. It's not, like 20 to 50 offers coming in. We're not seeing anything like that. But there are some multiple offers cases, and we've had some recently ourselves.
Interesting, Leslie. And so let me ask you about speed. How quickly does a good house at a good price go under contract?
Well, of course, if it is well priced and in good condition, you could expect 3 weeks, to get a contract on average. High demand homes are going to go faster. High demand, meaning the ones that are priced right, good location, and sale ready or move-in ready, as some people call it. And that certainly makes a huge difference, especially if someone is moving here from someplace else and they do not have time to fix a home up. There are always the ones that are looking for a fixer upper. And then you also run into two investors that are looking to buy, and they're going to buy more on a wholesale price. So you might not get what you're asking for if you don't have your home in move-in ready. So it depends on the audience that you are trying to get to buy your home, or for you as a buyer to buy. What is your intention? Is it for you, or is it for an investment? Because that will vary on price and condition.
I see. And Leslie, I've got to tell you, this is absolutely fascinating. I could even say it's jaw-dropping to see that much inventory coming on the market. And so a question about that. You said a good house at a good price would go under contract in 3 weeks, not 3 days and not 3 hours like it used to be.
Right. I mean, I would say starter and mid-tier homes, they're softening about a 3% drop, but the upper tier is still gaining modestly. And that would be, the price trajectory. So there's something out there for everyone. Interest rates are still a little higher than a lot of people would like them to be. But hey, if you're someone like me, who I thought the best interest rate I was ever going to get was 10.5% years ago on a refinance, I think the interest rates are not so bad. Plus, the other thing to look at when it comes to interest rates is, are you better off paying rent? And then what do you have when you move out versus pay whatever the interest rate is now and refinance if and when they come down?
And so, Leslie, here we are in the summer market of 2025. Let's tell everyone what they need to know if they plan to buy or sell this summer, beginning with home buyers. If I want to buy a house in Dallas this summer, Leslie, what should I be doing right now to get ready?
Well, I would get pre-approved because that is essential to complete that task. Polish your credit. You need to reduce existing debt and save for down payment and reserves. Monitor rates and the market. With the rates, still relatively high in most people's minds, locking in is probably wise, but I would definitely consult with a mortgage professional and work with an agent who understands, the local hotspots like the inner urban areas, the suburbs, builder inventory. So having a good realtor to work with will help you get through the steps that you need to do to prepare to either buy or sell.
Interesting. And Leslie, let me ask you about my personal priorities here. If I were to buy a place in Dallas, I would like it to be within 2 blocks of one of the best barbecue restaurants in America.
We can make that happen. Or we'll start our own.
There you go. And so, Leslie, also, what about those new rules in American real estate, the ones that involve commissions?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, until last year, typically, sellers would pay both their own agent and the buyer's agent as well. But what about now? Has all that changed?
Well, it's out there, yes, with the new changes. But I will say our commission is still negotiable and always has been negotiable. And for some reason, some people didn't seem to understand that that was the case, but we've always negotiated our commissions, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, depending on the need, the distance that we travel, the expertise that is required. Yes, there are some sellers that are not going to pay for a buyer's representative, but if you're a really good agent, I think that you can, in most cases, get a seller to at least participate to some degree with a buyer's rep. And then, of course, they need to have a buyer's rep signed, the agent that's working with the buyer, so that they have, a way of getting paid for their efforts. So it falls, to a degree on both sides, but ultimately it falls on the buyer's side because that's the responsible party for the buyer's agent if the seller is not offering commission to the buyer's agent.
I see. And Leslie, as we talk, because so much inventory has come on the market in Dallas, we're going to have a completely different conversation than you and I have had previously. Because we used to talk about getting in at the speed of light and making it a super clean contract so the seller would pick yours. But now, does a buyer in Dallas actually have time to see a dozen houses and then think about them before making an offer?
Well, that's still going to be risky because you just never know if someone's coming in from out of town tomorrow. They see that house and they decide this is the one we want. But then, they make an offer on it and you decide to wait a week and they're under contract by the time you decide to move on it. So, I always feel like when you're buying something, if you really want it, there's only one of a kind, then you need to make an offer and make it happen. If you want to sit on it for a while, there may be consequences to doing that. So that's kind of up to the buyer and their urgency.
Interesting. And the old saying, of course, is, hey, if you want to sleep on it, someone else will be sleeping in it.
I like that. That's a good one. And that is very true in all markets because you just never know. I mean, even in a market with tons and tons of inventory, there are still no two homes that are the same. Because no two homes can be in the same location. You could have two homes that are the same in a community because a builder is building multiple of that floor plan, but it's not maybe a corner lot, or maybe it doesn't back up to the railroad track. I mean, there's always something different about every home. And of course, that's also what's unique about real estate is every transaction that we work is different. We never do anything twice because the buyers and sellers are different. The location is different. So I think that's why a lot of people enjoy this profession, but it's also important to have someone who knows what they're doing to help you along the way.
If I'm a buyer in a balanced market, do I need to come in right out of the gate with an offer that's above their list price, or can I come in at list or maybe under list?
Well, there are so many things and variables that go into that. And of course, I know I've said this on your radio show before. Always have the buyer's agent ask the listing agent, what does the seller need? Do they want to be out of their house in a month? Or are they building a new home and they want to be out in 6 months? And I would try to keep things as clean as you can in the way of not putting a bunch of contingencies in there that, make people cringe at all the different things that, you want to have done. There's so many pieces that go to it. I mean, your interest rate, your loan, all of these things are going to matter. What you have the ability to purchase, what is your top level that you could even go? And no, you don't have to go make an offer that's above list price because you think that's going to get it for you, especially if you're not competing with another buyer for that property. So I would definitely talk to your realtor and they will run comparables that will give you an idea of where to come in and they will guide you through that. And we have the data and the access to be able to come up with those solutions to help a buyer make an informed offer.
I see. And Leslie, now let's turn to the seller's side of the settlement table with a question about today's market. As you say, it's a more balanced market now. So if I'm selling my house in Dallas, did I miss the boat? Should I have done it 6 months or a year ago?
Well, you know what? My father always said, if you buy and sell in the same market, you'll be fine because you're everything is in the market that we're in. Interest rates are going to be the same one way or the other. So I don't believe that, I mean, it's always a good time to buy if the price is right. Just like it's a good time to go buy a new refrigerator when yours went out because you need it, or you just had kids. You had twins and you don't have any kids 6 months ago and now you have twins and they're going to grow up and you're going to need more room. So you better start looking. Well, you can't say, oh, we're going to have kids when the market is like this. It doesn't work that way. So every market is a good market to buy and sell in. But as my dad said, doing both in the same market is always good because you're not going to get hurt one way or the other.
And Leslie, of course, you're talking about your very well-known realtor father, Harley Rouda, who founded HER Realtors in Columbus, Ohio.
That is right. See, I'm a Buckeye at heart, but I live in Texas.
And so if I am a home seller in a market that's now a balanced market, I'm obviously going to have more competition selling my house. So what has changed for sellers in a balanced market versus our recent seller's market?
Well, I would say that you need to have good curb appeal is always important. Condition is important, and pricing. Price within 3 to 5% of the current comps so that you can attract attention. And if someone is looking for a move-in ready home, certainly the condition is going to matter. So maybe you need to stage it. Move-in readiness earns quicker offers in most cases. Homes that need work usually sit longer. And then curb appeal, I mean, that's your first impression. When you pull up to a property, it's the landscaping is important, whether it's in the early morning that you're looking at it, later in the day, early evening that you're looking at it. Because people, if they don't see something that's enticing, that makes them feel like they want to go inside that property, then you've already lost them before they've walked through your front door. And so it's really important to take good care of your landscaping in your yard, because if you don't, a lot of buyers will look at that and say, well, if this is what their yard looks like, I can't imagine what it looks like in their house and behind the walls and under the house. They just wonder if you've kept up with maintenance on your property, or are they going to get stuck with it and be surprised? So all of those things make a difference.
Interesting. Because, Leslie, it wasn't too long ago that a seller in most cities in America could just slap up a for sale sign and they'd get a great price in almost no time. But it sounds like now you really have to put in the effort.
You do. And I can say I grew up in real estate, and I never in my life have seen a market like the one we went through a few years ago. So that might be the only time we ever see that in our lifetime, but you never know, because it was a surprise to me.
I see. And so, Leslie, when you start marketing a home, do you still use open houses? Are they still a thing, or are they kind of old-fashioned in today's digital world?
There are lots of open houses that go on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area every weekend, so they are still very popular. People go out and look at them, and sometimes it's even the neighbors that come down to see what's for sale, and maybe they're thinking about selling their home, and you might get, another opportunity as a realtor or a buyer for the home that you're sitting on. So open houses can still be very valuable. I think the number one thing with realtors is safety is very important, and obviously we need to make sure that it stays that way.
Absolutely. And Leslie, another dynamic that may have changed that I'd like to ask you about. It wasn't too long ago that if I sold my house, man, it would sell right away. But then finding my next place could take so long, I'd end up in a hotel. But I bet that's not happening now that you have so much more inventory on the market.
That's true. I mean, I would doubt that too many people would need to find a hotel unless you are building a home. That sometimes takes a little longer, and sometimes and usually takes longer than you think it's going to take. I mean, that's just like moving. Moving always seems to take longer than you think it will take. Only one more load. Oh no, I think it's two more. And it's just always like that. But like I said, if you buy and sell in the same market and you work with a great realtor who knows their market and they know the comps in the market and all the important things that you need to know to make an informed decision, you should be fine. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be, but I do think it's very important to work with a realtor who has expertise in the area that you are listing or buying in, either one.
Excellent. Excellent. So, Leslie, to sum it up for both buyers and sellers in the summer of 2025, beginning with buyers, is this a good time to make your move and buy a home?
Yes, prices are stabilizing and cooling, inventory is up, and the bargaining power is shifting in the buyer's favor. So, yes, a great time to buy.
Excellent. And what about for sellers? Is this still a good time to sell my house?
Absolutely. Homes can still sell well, but you must be realistic and strategic on your price and your presentation. And that's what a good realtor can help you do.
Well, Leslie, I really want to thank you for being on the show today, because not only do you bring great strategies and advice to everyone listening. You're also telling us about a shift in the market in one of the biggest real estate markets in America, in that with more houses coming on the market in Dallas, it's becoming a balanced market, which we have not seen for a decade.
I would agree. The market is definitely rebalancing and offering opportunities for both sides, for buyers and sellers who are informed and prepared.
Excellent. And Leslie, again, thank you for being with us today and walking us through buying and selling homes in the summer of 2025.
Thank you, Stephen. Always a pleasure.
Very welcome. The pleasure is all ours. Leslie Rouda Smith, the 2022 president of the National Association of Realtors, a broker associate at Dave Perry Miller Real Estate in Dallas. Leslie previously served as the chair of the Texas Realtors, where she also received a couple of big honors, their Distinguished Service Award and Realtor of the Year.
You're listening to Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque.
And now, it's time for Beyond the Basics, in which we bring your real estate knowledge to the next level. And today, since we just entered the summer market, let's hit the water and talk about what you can and cannot do if you own waterfront property. It's a big deal in markets with lakes, rivers, bays, and the ocean. A part of real estate called riparian rights that spell out in great detail what the rules are where the land meets the water. In most cases, if you own waterfront property, yes, you own the land, but not the water. But also, in most cases, you do have rights to use the water in certain ways. That's what riparian rights are all about. Say you have a nice place with a beautiful yard that goes right down to the banks of a lake. Can you build a dock there? And if so, how far into the lake can it go? 5 feet? 50 feet? And can you dock your boat there and maybe install a boat lift to raise it up out of the water? How about a diving board or a water slide for the kids? Or how about a little boathouse right there on the water where you could have an epic barbecue on the 4th of July? So many questions that require that you know your riparian rights. They'll be spelled out either by the municipality or your HOA community, or maybe even the U.S. Corps of Engineers. It all depends where the water is. But no matter where it is, the rules will be clear and all spelled out. And you need to know those rules before you buy waterfront property or start building anything in the water. Say that you find a place that has no dock at all. Can you build one? Check the rules. Or you find a place that already has a dock. Okay, but you'd like to put a big swimming raft way out, say 30 or 40 feet. Is that okay? Check the rules. And by the way, it's not just what you can build, it's what it's made of. The rules might specify whether the dock can be wood or aluminum, or whether it has to be floating on, yes, that's right, they're called dock floats. It's really just normal. I mean, if you buy a condominium, you need to know if you can rent it or not. If you buy in an HOA community, you need to know whether you can park on the street overnight or not. Riparian rights are just like that. They're the rules, but those rules only deal with waterfront property. So, what do you say? Shall we dive in? Next time on Real Estate This Week, it's our Independence Day doubleheader, all about the unique connection between our nation's veterans and active duty service members and homeownership. Our Independence Day doubleheader is next on Real Estate This Week. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.